This Creditors in Commerce classroom session, hereinafter session, is the private exchange of ideas and concepts between the providers and the recipients. The content is not meant as legal advice. The use or attempted use of any idea or procedure discussed in this session as applied to the recipient's own personal transactions, cases, or controversy, or applied to other cases, may or may not result in a favorable outcome or the same outcome as discussed in this session. Each transition or transaction, case, or controversy may be different as a result of unique actions or unique statements made by the parties therein, and each different act or statement in any transaction affects or may affect whether any procedure or idea discussed in this session is relevant to your transaction or that the outcome thereof will be depicted as in this session. The discussion of ideas or procedures in this session is not exhaustive of the subject being discussed. Many ideas and concepts that can affect the outcome of any legal or commercial procedure are not discussed in this session, and the fact that you may not be aware of these issues may have an adverse effect on the outcome of your procedure. It is the responsibility of each party to understand his own transactions and to apply the appropriate and complete concepts necessary for a procedural and substantive remedy thereto. This session may be redistributed privately by any recipient to another recipient requesting them, conditioned upon the fact that this notice is provided therewith. If you have any questions, you may contact Brandon by email at harmony@creditorsincommerce.com or by telephone at 702-866-9077. Alrighty, away we go. Wanted to start off with a announcement of sorts. For those of you who have gotten my cell phone number or who have been calling the phone number listed on the website, please stop. I've got over 100 voicemails that I have yet to go through. And it's just getting almost out of hand for myself. I've been scheduled for a lot of time, so I'm helping and coaching as many of you as I can. We do have the phone calls, the conference calls, weekly. I suggest that if you have questions or anything like that, you call in on the conference calls. And use your network. We are a network of creditors. I am no authority. Okay? So look to those of the rest of the creditors, either in the room, on the phone, or who participate in the Google groups and whatnot. Don't think I have all the answers. Okay? Typically, you'll probably be disappointed because I'm just going to start asking you a lot of questions. Okay? Those are my answers. So, also, those of you who are pursuing the processes and procedures that we've discussed in here, make sure you understand completely what it is you're doing before you do it. Okay? Know the why and the how of everything you're doing, whether it's filling out forms or anything else. Know why you put information where you put it. I was talking to someone on the phone this week, and I asked him the question, why would you put that information in that box? And he told me, because you told me to, because you said to. I said, okay, I want you to take all the money out of your bank account, and I want you to wire it directly to mine. Okay? He still hasn't wired those funds into my account. So, just so you know, again, I am not an authority. If you don't understand it, don't do it, and seek an understanding. Look at all the people in this room, all the people on the phone call, all the people in the Google group. We've got a really large network of people that if we, use our resources, we can really come up with something useful. Okay? Tonight, I wanted to get in, this may, if the things you think we've discussed up until now have your head spinning,
Hold on, because what we're going to be discussing tonight is quantum language, the use of language, and probably everything you think you know about the use of your own language is false and fictitious. Okay? Okay. For those of you in audio land, I am writing a I'm writing a phrase here on the board, and it says United States. In the context of language, what is this? Is it a noun? Is it a verb? Is it an adjective?
Noun. It's a noun.
It's a noun. Really? United States.
States is the verb. United is the adjective. States is the...
United is an adjective. Okay. Could united be a verb? Could states be a verb? Could this be an adverb-verb fiction?
Adverb-verb fiction.
Does anyone know the only way to clearly define a noun? Because in our use of language, we're constantly converting nouns into verbs, adverbs and verbs, and whenever you create an adverb-verb fiction, you're not saying anything. At least you're not stating any known facts, okay? Because you're dealing in adverb-verb, okay? Now, you could see this as a noun. Did you know in the U.S. Code there's over 30 definitions for this phrase right here? 30 definitions for this phrase, okay, in the U.S. Code. So, don't assume it's a noun. Assumption and presumption. So, for the last 10,000 years, mankind has been creating fictions through the adverb-verb use of the language. Okay? If I were to translate that phrase into the 5,000 different languages of the earth, would it have the same meaning? I mean, considering it has 30 meanings here, how can it have the same meaning there? Okay? So, for those of you, does anyone know how we could place a noun? How we could clearly identify a noun in a statement? The what?
It's the object of a verb.
The object of a verb. So you're saying the sentence structure
Right.
would clearly delineate a noun.
It has to.
Because we can't base it on the word, right? What if I write this word? B-O-O-K. What is that? Right? Couldn't it be both? Yeah, depends on the context. Okay? And have any of you ever heard of judicial discretion? Where's my lawyer?
That's our artistic license.
You know what you've heard of judicial discretion? Judicial discretion and may be something like taking a phrase and interpreting it based on some previous interpretation of that phrase, but to the discretion of the person doing the interpreting. So a judge who may be doing a review of a pleading or evidence could take judicial discretion interpreting what you're saying. And if he just sees a bunch of adverb, verb fiction all over the page, you're not saying anything. You're not stating any facts. You're completely fictionalizing your speech. That's why spoken language, it's always fiction, because you can't even see what I'm saying. What if I say 2 + 2 is 4? Is that a fact? No, because I could be saying T-O plus T-O-O equals F-O-R-E. right? 2 plus 2 equals 4. Okay? Not necessarily a fact. So, how do we overcome our fictional use of the language? Any of you ever heard of a style manual?
No.
Something you might want to look into. It's like a reference guide on the use of language. Okay? Now, in the English language, the only way you could for sure tell that a word is being used as a noun is when it comes at the end of a prepositional phrase after an article. Okay? The only way you can clearly define a noun in any language, not just the English language. This is a principle in all the 5,000 languages currently spoken and written on the earth. This principle holds true. That if you have a preposition, article, noun, you're clearly defining the noun. Okay? So, we had on the board earlier United States. We couldn't tell what the hell it was. Could have been adverb, verb, could have been adjective, noun, could have been pronoun. We don't know what we were saying because we couldn't clearly define that phrase by its context of just being alone on the board. So how might we state or write the idea or the concept of what we believe the nation or society of the United States? How might we write that if we need to use prepositional phrases in order to identify our nouns? Here's an example of how I might do it. For the United States of the American Republic. Preposition, article, compound noun. United States. Because if I didn't hyphenate this and connect these as a single thing, I would be possibly having an adverb-verb combination. Even though I have a preposition and article, having preposition, article, adverb, verb doesn't help me. Of the preposition, article, American Republic. Again, a compound noun. For the United States of the American Republic. Does that give you a clearer idea of what we're talking about if we speak it in this way or if we write it in this way? Pass the microphone to the back, please. Here, hold on to that, please.
In the context of
Turn it on.
In the context of quantum languaging, would not the North American Republic be a clear...
we could clarify more because in reality, I'm still fictionalizing my language by, anyone know how? United. It's past tense.
Exactly.
Can this be true in now-time jurisdiction? And if it's not true in now-time jurisdiction, when is it true? You see the problem we have with the way our laws are written. Every law that's written has shall. So if it's shall, and in the future, when is it actually a law? When is it actually enforceable? If it's always in the future. No matter when I read the law, it's always in the future. It's never in the now. Okay? So a better way of using my language may be for the Union States, which has one definition in the U.S. Code, just one. For the Union States of the North-American Republic. That's even more clarity. And it's now time jurisdiction. Okay? Now, if a fact is not in the now time jurisdiction, is it ever a fact? No. It's always in the future or in the past. It's fiction. It's never in the now. So any statements you make that use past tense words and future tense words are placing the statement outside of the now. And thereby the statement is never true. Because it's no matter when I read it, it's always in the future or always in the past. Whereas if everything is in the now, then it will always be true, no matter when I read it. Now, for those of you, we actually do have some documents this week that I'm just going to touch on real quick. I'm not going to go into too much detail on these. But if you have access to the private network, these documents are under Files, the Living Temple class, Session 9. Okay? I think probably one of the most important documents I've put up to date is this one here. It's called The Mastery of the Universal Legal Technology. And this particular text goes into detail about the structure of language and law and structuring of pleadings and things like that using quantum language. Okay? There's also some materials in there from David Wynn Miller, and there are links also in the resources section of the website to David Wynn Miller's materials. And David Wynn Miller goes into an extensive amount of detail on quantum language. Okay, so for those of you who want a much larger picture of what we're discussing here tonight, I mean, literally, we could go on for days on this subject, just learning how to structure claims and anything else in this format. Microphone.
Is it a fair assumption then that the courts no longer use blacks or Bouvier?
They probably do use blacks or Bouvier, but no matter, everything that comes into the court is in fiction language.
It's all interpreted.
So it's all, yeah, that's why the judge is always making the law.
Got it.
Because he's always interpreting.
Right.
You know, where are you putting adverb-verb fictions, and how is he to determine the meaning of those fictions? One of the most important things in a pleading or contract are your definitions. So if you're ever putting together a contract or a pleading or a trust or anything that you want to be legally enforceable or binding, you're going to want an extensive definition section, because there are hundreds of definitions, sometimes for just a group of words, 2 or 3 words, and the way you use them and the order you use them in can change the definitions extensively. Okay? So, take a look at those documents. Become familiar with this. This isn't a technology that's going to probably be in effect for a decade, but they are learning it. Judges are learning it. International litigators are learning it. It's now a format recognized by the International Criminal Court. In fact, if you want to make a claim at the International Criminal Court, it's probably the only way you're going to get your claim is if it's structured in quantum, now-time language. Now that the world has been given notice that they've been fictionally using the language and thereby creating fiction in everything that you thought was binding contracts, treaties, things like that, all of them null and void, because they're all in fiction. They're all past tense, present tense, adverb, verb, fiction structure. So you're going to see a rewriting of all the contracts, constitutions, treaties. How many have heard anything about the Kingdom of Hawaii declaring its sovereignty from the United States? Some people have heard about that. Do you know how they did that? Quantum language claim and a quantum language constitution. Okay? Now, why are they still a state? If they've put in their claim and it's all in now time quantum language truth, why do they not have their sovereignty? The international courts recognized it.
They haven't paid their debts?
Aha! They haven't paid their debts. So, if they discharged all the debts held by the state of Hawaii, then the Kingdom of Hawaii would have no problem. However, the state of Hawaii still has, I'm sure, quite a bit of debt. Can we get a microphone over in the back corner? Yeah, same with the state of Texas, who's also, I believe, tried to declare their sovereignty. The Republic of Texas, I should say.
Did the American Indians do the same?
Possibly. I know that this isn't a. I know that some have gained access to this technology and information and are using it, as well as some of the Canadian natives. Okay. So, I'm going to bring up a text, and what we'll do is we're going to break down this text and translate it, since if I were to write or speak everything tonight in quantum truth, you guys wouldn't understand me. You'd be like, the what? Before the what? With the what? Of the what? Huh? What is he saying? Okay? And if any of you have seen the David Windmiller videos or heard the David Windmiller audios, it just blows your mind, because this guy can speak it. He can speak it, he can write it, and everything that he does is for the this, of that, with the this, is this. Okay? And also an important factor of quantum now-time language is that the only verbs to properly use the language, the only verbs are is and are. Those are the only verbs which show action, volition. Anyone know the definition of volition? Close. Will in action. It's one of the most powerful words in the English language. And if you look at the structure of the English language, you'll start to notice some idiosyncrasies, I'll say. Every word, or almost every word that begins with AU is of authority, authenticity. Autograph is authentic. Okay. What is the symbol for gold? So, just an interesting little thing. And you'll start to notice that about all the different aspects of language, that our entire language, and whether it's by design or by our own infinite wisdom, that we've created the language this way. But every word is related to every other word in this breakdown. You can literally probably break down every word by a single letter and show how the single letter's meaning in use with these other letters that it's modifying create a clear definition of that word just by how we put the letters in order. Probably back to Latin as well. Probably all languages, because the way I see it, we have infinite wisdom, and we put it in everything that we do. Our art, our language, everything that we do. Getting a little bit of a ring. Okay, let me bring up this document.
Everything we do what?
We embed infinite wisdom in it. All the movies we make, all the songs that we write. Go ahead.
Just before you get started, can you define preposition and article?
Yeah. Preposition, well, actually, I don't know if I'll do it. I don't know if I'd give it the same meaning as an English teacher would give it. How about I give you some examples of prepositions? For is a preposition. Of is a preposition. With is a preposition. By is a preposition. And in the structure, and these aren't the only prepositions, there are many, many more. Some of them you want to avoid using, like under, over. Certain words, by their structure and nature, nullify what it is you're trying to do, especially if you're seeking to speak truth. Okay, so be careful with which prepositions you do use. For is probably the most powerful of the prepositions. It signifies the cause, often. Of would be like the effect, or that which is affected, or that which is affecting. With signifies possession. I can't spell, so. Am I right? Possession? Okay. By is authority.
Could with also be conditions?
It could. We have in, on, as. Those are prepositions. And articles could be, and again, articles, there's some you want to avoid. This, these are the ones you don't have to avoid. This, the, a, any, and many more. These are examples of articles. So if I have a preposition followed by an article followed by a noun, I have clearly defined that noun as a noun, as a known. Noun is known. Interesting word, noun. No, no. It's a no-no. What's a no-no? It's a double negative. It's a yes. Pronoun is a no-no-no. 3 negatives is a negative. So you don't want to use pronouns. They don't have a clear-cut definition. So again, when you go back and read the Constitution, you notice all these arbitrarily capitalized words in the Constitution. They're creating pronouns. Not to mention the entire thing is adverb-verb fiction. Okay, Constitution of the United States of America, adverb-verb, adverb-verb. Okay? No, I'm not saying it was originally written in quantum language, but I think here's an interesting thing I noticed. I was watching a special on History Channel about Rob Roy, some hellion from Scotland who gave the English a bunch of trouble. Okay? And they were talking about how the king had made a declaration about his status in some way that was almost like there was a bounty put out on his head. And they showed the language of this royal decree. It was by the king, for the this, of the that. Rob Roy was hyphenated. And I thought it was interesting that, at one point, someone knew how to make nouns. Okay? My dear friend, who's an attorney and here with us tonight, she brought to my attention this article. And this is a March 2009 California Bar Journal. Okay? And the article basically talks about how there are fewer lawyer-lawmakers. Does it make a difference? In 1971, almost half of the state's lawmakers, 58 of 120, were lawyers. But the numbers have been steadily declining, hitting what is believed to be an all-time low in the current session. 21 attorneys active in the state bar, 15 in the 80-member assembly, and 6 in the 40-member Senate. That drops from 48% to 18%. Okay? Why is that significant? And then here's a little quote a little later on in the article. Lawyers understand how laws are interpreted by the courts and by lawyers, and how a single word in a statute can make an enormous difference in the way that it is interpreted. A single word. Okay? So you have a bunch of yahoos who don't know anything about the language writing your laws. Yep. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I wrote a document. This is kind of like if you could have a personal mission statement. This is like my personal mission statement. I wrote this as the document that governs my life, my personal covenant with the world, with my God. Okay. Written at the top, and how many people have ever seen someone write their name, Brandon, hyphen, Alexander, colon, Adams? Has anyone ever seen a name written this way? Yeah. Does anyone know why someone might write their name this way? No? Okay. Hieroglyphics are an important part of language. Okay? Colons and hyphens are hieroglyphics. A colon represents a prepositional phrase. For the Brandon hyphen Alexander of the family Adams. I've just written my name in a now, time, jurisdiction, factual, non-adverb verb fiction so that it is a noun. It is a known. You see? Now, I don't suggest you start writing your name like this unless your entire document is in quantum language. And there are those who go around writing their name this way thinking this makes them sovereign. Because I write my name this way, I'm a sovereign, you can't touch me. Okay? Does this give you control of property? No. So how does it make you sovereign? Okay? Now, if it was accompanied on a document that was written in now-time quantum language and the entire document was in now-time quantum language, then it would make sense to have your name this way on that document. Okay? So, the title of the document, my personal covenant, colon, code of the life, colon, because then it continues after that. Why would I put a colon before code of the life? Symbolize a prepositional phrase. For the code of the life. Okay? For the claimant's hyphen domain of the claimant's hyphen body is with these claims by this claimant. So, for the claimant's domain, the cause, for the claimant's domain, claimant's hyphen domain, of the claimant's body, the effect of the claimant's body is my verb, putting it into action, with these claims, possession, by this claimant, authority. Okay? Then it has underneath that, squiggle, tilde, 1. Those of you who have been with me when I'm working and heard me type squiggles, or tildes, I always call them squiggles. Tilde 1. Why would I put a tilde before 1? Again, yeah. It's a hieroglyphic. Okay? It takes this from being a mathematical object and makes it into a noun position. Okay? So tilde 1, rather than just writing a 1, because then I'm mixing math and language. So, for the claimant's domain of the claimant's body is with these claims by this claimant. Tilde 1, or position 1. For the volition of this claimant is with the fitness of the claimant's body. For the volition. What was volition? Will in action. So for the claimant's will in action is the verb with the fitness of the claimant's body. With possession of fitness of affect the claimant's body. Does that make sense? No? Doesn't make sense? Okay. What might it mean, if you were to guess? What's that? Claiming possession of my body? For the volition, the will of the claimant, is with the fitness of the claimant's body. It is my will to have a fit body. Right? Is that not what it... Well, that's what it means if we broke it down and dissected the nouns out of it. We've got a noun of volition. Volition is my will. We've got a noun of a claimant. Me. We got a noun of fitness, and we've got a noun of body. And I even made it clear that it's the claimant's body. My volition isn't with the fitness of anybody else's body. It's with the claimant's body. Okay? Tilde 2, for the volition of this claimant is with the nourishment of the claimant's body. It is my will to be in possession of nourishment for the body, or of the body. Okay? So, and I'm going to pick another one. And this basically goes on subject by subject by subject by subject. If you guys want, I'll read the whole thing to you. It's only one page, but I want to bring out another example here. Here we go. I'll use this one. For the claimant's domain of the claimant's spirit is with these claims by this claimant. Okay? So, for the claimant's domain, noun, what is the effect, or what affects this claimant's domain? The claimant's spirit. Okay? For the claimant's domain of the claimant's spirit is in action with these claims, which are going to be the following numbered claims, the following points, by this claimant. Okay? For the volition of this claimant is with the knowledge of the God. For the volition, it is the will of the claimant to have the knowledge of the God. So we have a noun, volition. We have a noun, the claimant. We have a noun of knowledge. We have a noun of God. Okay? For the volition of the claimant is with the honoring of all covenants. All being our what? Article. Okay? So that's another article we didn't list. We had a, all, the, this, these, any. Okay? For the volition of this claimant is with the teaching of the law. And I intentionally left the law unhyphenated with any other words because I could have been more specific. I could have said with the teaching of the commercial law, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the law, the universal law, which could be God. If God were the cause or the reason that everything happened the way that it happened, could that not be considered a law? Isn't it law that determines how things happen? We have the natural laws. Okay. So, gives you an idea of using the language and how the use of that language could be used to structure contracts, pleadings, anything of that nature, and how when you use the language in this manner, you can state facts that are not left up to interpretation. Now, an important element of this is definitions. Like I have on there, claimant's domain of the claimant's body. I might even want to define claimant's body, claimant's domain, claimant. Well, at the bottom, I've defined claimant by putting autograph hyphen claimant colon autograph hyphen claimant colon. And then it has the autograph, which was, when we remember we wrote the name, it's written in now time quantum language, showing the ultimate authority of the document, signifying that the authenticator of this document is the claimant. Okay? Any questions? Like I said, you thought the stuff we talked about before would twisted your noodle. Anyone on the phone have any questions, or have I lost y'all?
Yeah, there's communications with you. If somebody's on the phone having trouble, or the microphone is.
What's that?
We're having a heck of a time hearing you. Either the microphone in the audience or someone online is having some type of breathing difficulties or something. We're having a heck of a hard time hearing you.
Is someone holding a microphone? Is it on? Are you breathing into it? Okay, it may be someone on the line. Would you guys like me to just mute the phone lines until I ask for questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You are muted.
There you go. Ask and you shall receive.
I guess my question, and it comes from the fact, that I am an attorney, and I read business contracts daily, and let's say I began to write my contracts in this language, how is it that someone else would understand it?
Good question. I guess you'd have to educate them on the proper use of language. I've actually, David Wynn Miller, actually, when he walks into court, his only defense is, use the language properly. Then I'll recognize your claim. That's like his defense to everything. He'll bring up their pleading on a big whiteboard and show how they're fictionalizing the use of language, how when they even put the word indictment, they underline each letter individually. And if you go to the style manual, what they're doing is they're putting a bunch of words in order. By individually underlining each letter, it doesn't even say indictment. It says I-N-D-I-C. Okay? Yep, I could keep going. I ran out of space pointing on the board. So, it's not an indictment, and that's his approach. I'm not saying that should be our approach.
How does that work for him?
It works 100% of the time because, like I said, the judges have been informed. And typically, in more than one occasion, the judges have shut down and called in all the officers of the court to listen to him explain this. Okay? So, because it is very important for them to understand more than anyone else. Okay? Because if they don't understand it, then when people start walking in with actual claims written in this language format, they're going to be in a huge disadvantage.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear us? I'm going to have to mute you, but I will unmute when we ask for questions. Yes. Oh, you know what? Hold on. I just realized nobody's hearing me because I'm muted. Sorry about that, guys. I just realized I was muted too.
Is David using it to obstruct and delay, or is he using it to bring settlement?
He's using it to obstruct and delay.
So he's being a huge debtor.
Yeah,
but
he's not being a creditor.
He's just got an incredible technology.
Yeah, he's got it. Not only he's really the founder. Him, along with some others, are the ones who really pioneered the quantum use of language. Like literally, you can mathematically break down statements and prove them forwards and backwards with this technology. Mm-hmm. That's the power of it. That's how you can prove it's a fact. Literally, it means the same backwards as it does forwards.
So if we
just
start
like a mathematical
using this
equation.
Technology to bring settlement and closure and remedy to not only our domain, but the domain of the others that we interact with, that's the true use of this language in a profound way that can affect the whole planet and the whole ecosystem that we all live in. rather than just another vehicle to be the debtor defendant, obstruct and delay, cause more war and controversy.
Yeah, this isn't a technology to be used as a debtor. That as creditors, we use it to state a claim upon which relief can be granted. Can we pass the microphone? Oh, okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you have command of this, then you could always write superior claims because the other party would be using inferior fictionalized language.
Yeah, he'd be using adverb verb, which is up for interpretation. He hasn't stated one fact. How does a document that has no facts on it stand up to a document that is all facts? Now, next week we'll be getting into admiralty, and you'll be seeing how when you use this technology in admiralty, you're unstoppable, really. Because when you understand that you're the postmaster carrying in a vessel into a foreign jurisdiction and you properly identify the vessel as such by putting a flag on the vessel, putting a postage stamp on the vessel, signing through the postage stamp as the postmaster authorized to carry said vessel from one jurisdiction to another. Okay? It's a very interesting concept. And everything in public is vessels. We're all vessels in the sea of space. Each document, each claim, each pleading is a vessel in the sea of space.
When the Articles of the Confederation were written, was it written in this format, or was it written in a different format?
There hasn't been much written in this format for about 10,000 years. Now, here's another interesting fact.
That was my question.
When you write a statement in this structure, it has the same meaning when it's translated to all 5,000 languages on the earth. Do you see the power of it as far as international treaties? You know why countries go to war and fight over things? Misinterpretation, misunderstandings. How many people have ever gone to war over a math problem? Okay? Because when you break your language down quantably, that's a new word. When you break it down quantably, or you quantify it, it has the same meaning in all languages, and it's provable backwards and forwards. Okay? Now, there's some elements to the actual mathematical side of this. I don't know if we want to get into that tonight, but just to give you an idea of how you break it down, 0 equals your conjunctions, like and, or. 1 is adverb. 2 is verb. 3 is adjective. 4 is preposition. No, it's pronoun. 5 is preposition. 6, I'm going to run out of room here, is article. 7 is noun. 8 is past tense. And 9 is future tense. Now, when you use this quantum structure or quantum analysis of language, you're able to break down every statement and prove it mathematically backwards and forwards. And you'll start to notice when you start using adverb-verb fiction, adjective-pronoun fiction, adjective-adverb-verb fiction. When you start to use these parts of the language, your whole structure starts to fall apart when you try to reverse it. Okay. Whereas if you use 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 2, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, that structure is provable backwards and forwards. Okay. I'll give you an example of a 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 2, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7. Okay. For the driving of the cars with the knowledge of the driver. What are nouns? Driving, car, knowledge, driver. Does that seem plausible? For the driving of the car is in action with the knowledge of the driver. Backwards. For the driver of the car is with the knowledge of the driving. Or, for the knowledge of the driver is with the driving of the car. All has the same meaning. Okay? Backwards and forwards, quantifiable.
Can you break down the going backwards part again? A little slower.
Sure. Forwards, for the driving of the cars with the knowledge of the driver. So I could reverse the for, of, with, of by switching driving and driver, the first noun with the last noun. And now I've got for the driver of the car is with the knowledge of the driving. Or I could switch the for the driving and of the car with the knowledge of the with the knowledge of the driver. So I could say for the knowledge of the driver is with the driving of the car. Okay? And like I said, has the same meaning, backwards and forwards. I translate this into any of the 5,000 languages on earth, has the same meaning. Now, some of you may have a hard time even seeing that this has any meaning. I know that, because when I was first exposed to this, I'm like, what the f-? Like, it was hard for me to comprehend what was going on, because I'm not used to stating everything in prepositional phrases. I'm not used to reading everything in prepositional phrases. So when you start to read it and see it, it's like, okay, how do I make sense of this?
That's how I felt when I first looked at his website. I was like, this guy's insane. It's madness. So how does one become a quantum linguist? Do we read this text, The Mastery of Universal Legal Technology? Does it break it all down? Or?
There's a book available. Have you read the book yet? No. There's a book available that I got from Mr. David Wynn Miller. The entire book is written in this language structure. You want to learn it? Dive in head first. And he has a series of videos and audios that I believe you can download the audios for free from his website. And he has a series of videos where he held open hearings for anyone to disprove this technology. Okay? And he's been doing this since, I believe, the 90s. He's been holding open hearings, waiting for anyone to disprove this structure.
Have you heard anything about, I think it's reverse speech?
Reverse speech, like when you take a recorded speech and then play it backwards?
Right, and it supposedly like reveals like...
intention?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard him?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Do you have any input on that?
That's when I was talking earlier about our infinite wisdom being encoded in our language.
Yeah.
Same thing. You know, it's your intention is carried in your words. The way that you speak your words will carry your intention with it. So remember, I've told you when you're on the phone as a creditor talking to anyone, or when you're in person with someone, and you're truly coming from the creditor position, not just talking like one. Just like I know these people very well who, to your face and to other people's faces, they put on this shiny kind of personality, kind of, they're playing a character, but the intention behind their words isn't what they speak nicely, and if I were to just analyze them by their speech, oh, wow, what a great person they are. But when you can feel their intention behind their use of language, I bet if you did a reverse speech analysis on them, it would reveal that they're holding a level of contempt for you, or that their intention is malintent.
You see a lot of that in My Fair Lady.
You see a lot of that in My Fair Lady? Is that the movie?
Yeah, Pygmalion's My Fair Lady. They film how the British use of language is very manipulative.
It is.
The whole movie that way.
Interesting.
How does this quantum language compare to, let's say, Sanskrit or Hebrew, the only two pure languages that I'm aware of on the planet so far that are extant? Is the sentence structure similar to these?
I don't know, because I don't know Hebrew or Sanskrit.
I didn't know if anyone had made any correlations.
Perhaps.
Interesting.
Like I said, we've been using adverb-verb fiction for 10,000 years, so it's hard to go back and see where it comes from, so to speak. There is kind of a sing-song kind of feel when you speak the language in such a way. And in fact, what I have heard is that there were several native languages that spoke this way. In fact, the Hawaiians were one of them. And how they were forbidden by the United States to teach their language once they became a state. That's probably why the Hawaiians grasped onto this and to use for their constitution, was because this is the natural way they use the language, is in prepositional phrases. They don't speak in adverb-verb fiction naturally. So like when you read it, it's kind of got a sing-song kind of a rhythm to it. I almost want to start singing when I'm talking it, when I'm reading something. For the driving of the cars with the knowledge of the driver, it kind of has a rhythm to it, And I don't know, I always thought Chinese kind of had like a kind of a rhythm, it seems. And I don't know if it's spoken this way. Again, I don't know Chinese. Anyone? Does it kind of roll like that when you speak Chinese? What's that? Vietnamese? Okay.
How about Yoda in Star Wars?
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh. He's with the knowledge of the Jedi. Oh, microphone. We need a microphone in the back. I think we have one back there. Oh, Niall needs. We got two moving. Oh, we got 5 minutes. Oh, okay. Thank you for being such a disturbance. Yes.
So just to summarize, like from my understanding right now of what I'm hearing, is that the fiction came from the fact that we're not defining the noun. So when you're constructing the languages in this way, as soon as you define the noun,
it's not left up for interpretation anymore.
So when
like United States. If I just say United States, that's up for interpretation.
Okay.
There's over 30 definitions that we know of.
Well, because I noticed, too, the words that you were switching around were the nouns.
Right.
So the article and the prepositions stay where they are, but because you're switching the nouns and there was no interpretation of their definition, then they're always true.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And I might, this statement, I happen to use the same article, so it seemed like the articles, but if I were moving them around, really the article would kind of follow with the noun. Because let's say I'm saying, for the driving of this car is with the knowledge of this driver. This car and this driver would stay together. Okay, so I'm saying, for this driver of the car is with this knowledge of the driving.
So it takes on a whole new level of loose lips sink ships or vessels.
Yep. We are vessels. And when you combine, like I said, you combine this technology with a knowledge of how vessels travel through commerce and how you can get your vessels through commerce from one jurisdiction to another. Because if you just put your claim on a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, it's legally defined as a correspondence. Interesting that all pleadings are put in on 8.5 by 11 paper nowadays. They weren't always. It should be 14, and it should be 8 by 14. Because in admiralty, there are no halves. Okay? So it would be on a full 8.5 by 14 cotton, probably 100% cotton paper, bond paper, with a flag in the upper left-hand corner of the vessel, a stamp in the upper right-hand corner of the vessel, and the autograph of the claimant or libelant on the back of the document, as well as anywhere that you may have the autograph of the claimant on the front. Does anyone know why we might put the autograph on the back as well? And we probably want to put our flag on the back as well.
Because judges will turn your documents over and say, I don't see anything.
Well, not only that, but it's covering from corner to corner the entire vessel. The entire vessel is now under the jurisdiction of your flag. And what flag are they using in the public courts? Military flag, yellow fringe, right? Or gold fringe. That's not the flag of the Republic. So if we're coming from the private, we wouldn't have a gold fringed 3x5 flag. We'd have a non-gold fringe 1x1.9 flag in the upper left-hand corner, which would look more like this. That's the proper ratio, and I mean, maybe not exact because I kind of free-handed it there, but typically what you'll see in public is a proportion more like this. Okay? This is documentary. This is the flag of the Republic. This is the flag of the democracy or of the military.
What's the ratio again?
1:1.9.
Should we be using the vertically striped flags? Because that's a war flag when you have the stripes.
You're talking about the civil flag?
Yeah.
Well, the civil flag was never officially the flag of the Republic. If you're talking about coming from the Republic, you'd probably want to use this flag. How many of you are aware of the civil flag? Okay, civil flag was a flag adopted long ago, and it had almost the same structure, except the field, which is blue on the flag of the Republic, it's white with blue stars, and the stripes go this way. Yeah, it's called the civil flag of the United States. And there may be a purpose for it. If we're wanting to put it on the vessel, okay, we're going to have to change tape. Let's go. And we're back. Okay. So, yes, microphone, please.
Why do we have the military flag in the courtroom with the fringe?
Because you're on a vessel, and the vessel is a military vessel. It's actually a Puerto Rican vessel. It's a Puerto Rican vessel in dry dock is a courtroom. Okay? It is. It's a Puerto Rican vessel in dry dock. And we're in a state of war. I mean, really, you could trace it back to Lincoln. Lincoln put forward some acts basically when the sovereign states got hostile with the federal government. We were now in a perpetual state of war, and the federal government, being the protector of the debt for the international creditors, had to, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, had to take extraordinary measures in order to keep the peace of the sovereign states.
Is that like they were like shooting their cannons off at that island or whatever that was?
Sumner, yeah. Well, that again, if we want to go into what really happened in history, we could spend a couple weeks on that as well.
Do you know why on our U.S. forces they wear the patch with the flag backwards?
Yeah, because it's that way?
Yeah.
Because you walk this way. If you notice on a car, on a vehicle, the flags are the same way. They're always going in the reverse. It's as if they're blowing in the wind. So if like you're looking at a plane, on this side it'll look the right way, but on this side it'll look the wrong way. You know, because it's as if the flags are flowing backwards. Yeah. So if it's on this arm, it would be going that way. If it's on this arm, it's going to be going that way, because arms are moving in that direction. It's motion, vessels in motion. Okay. Alrighty. Any other questions on language and the use of language?
How long did it take you to learn this?
How long did it take me to learn this? I'm still learning this. I don't pretend like I ever know anything, so I'm a student of it.
Doesn't language is in a form of hardwiring the mind?
It is.
And as a result of that, the corruption of the language is a corruption of the mind.
Yes. And same with politically correctness. Anybody ever read the book 1984? Newspeak? Newspeak was a method of limiting the words available to the public. By limiting the words available to the public, you limit the public's ability to form thoughts.
It was more than that, though.
Yeah, it was more than that.
It actually came up with the concept of cognitive dissonance was eliminated.
Yeah.
Through Newspeak. That was the primary reason for it.
Right. So, the use of language and our interpretation of language and the intention behind our language are very important things for a creditor to be mindful of. Okay? Especially the intention. Do you have one?
And the government.
Can I repeat it? No. It kind of just comes out and it's not memorized. So what were we talking about?
Well, Minority Report, how they were able to tap into people's intention when they were arrested before they even...
Yep. But intention is important. And intention means everything in being a creditor. If your intention is to obstruct, delay, to not take responsibility, and an important aspect of taking responsibility is being knowledgeable, having a clear understanding of the processes and procedures that you undertake. Okay? Alrighty, anyone else? Any questions? 8:20. Alrighty, we want to do a break for about, I'd like to say 10 minutes, but it just never works out that way. Okay, I'm going to give you actually 20 minutes, okay? That should be plenty of time to look around the store, get a drink, go to the bathroom, talk, and then in 20 minutes on the mark, I want to get started. So it's 8:20. At 8:40, let's get going, started right away so that we can finish up the last hour and be out of here at a reasonable hour. Okay. Alrighty. Questions?
I just wanted to point out that even the credit slips, when we credit things back to our credit cards, they put it on a red chart slip.
Interesting.
You want to show the group?
And the reason why it's red?
Red? Why is something red? Private. Okay. Alrighty. Yeah, that's why I use a red pen. And if you notice the website, all in red. And red's not particularly my favorite color or anything, but I wanted to make sure it was clear that everything on the website's private. Okay. Alrighty, I'm gonna mute you guys again, just because we're getting some background noise, and I'll promise to unmute myself.
You are muted.
Okay.
You are unmuted.
Alrighty. Any questions regarding language? Come on. Yeah. I want some feedback. The class doesn't go anywhere without feedback. Well, then I assume you all know and get this perfectly clear then, right? So if I asked you to put a claim into quantum language, you could? Can you pass that back? Yeah, let's generate some conversation. This is your class. I'm just a moderator.
I've been studying a little bit of hieroglyphs and magic and such in the last year, 2 years. And I'm wondering if the now time quantum language is similar, if at all, to gematria or the study of numbers and language.
It can probably be tied in with it because because it's quantum, just like gematria and anything else, there's a quantum factor to it. It's quantifiable, and that's why you can find within gematria the infinite wisdom of the universe in proportions. That's, any of you have heard of harmonics and sacred geometry and things like that. It's all quantified in proportions, and that or the Kabbalah, these are all universal truths held in numbers. And when you put your language into numbers, it can be associated or become part of that universal nature or truth. So I would say it's related. What's that? It's been done in every religion, from Hebrew to Tibetan to Christianity. Yeah. The numbers, the infinite wisdom of the sacred proportions are in all of the religions and everything you'll find. Interesting, this is kind of off topic, but some of the numbers, anyone ever seen this number? 144,000. She's got a book? Okay, what does it mean to you? Get a microphone, please.
It says, the universal language of light contains 144,000 geometric symbols. It is the frequency coding that humans need to transcend third-dimensional thinking. It comes to us through our own higher selves and filters down to our lower 8 bodies. This language carries the divine blueprint for our individual missions that replaces the will of the ego with the will of God. And then it goes on.
Interesting. You know where else we might?
Book ever, by the way.
If you actually break down your measuring systems.
The book, Brandon, just really quickly, because everyone's asking, is The Light Shall Set You Free by Norma Milanovic and Dr. Shirley McCune.
Okay. Just like using quantum language, using a universal system of measurement, you'll find that all of these sacred numbers in the Bible, when you use a universal system of measurement, they're all over the place. You'll find that these are the most significant numbers when you use a universal system of measurement. Now, are inches or meters universal systems of measurement? Why not? Yeah, why not? They're just arbitrary, right? I remember, I don't know if this is where they really come from, but you remember in school, where did the inch come from? The king's thumb or something like that? And where did a foot come from? The king's foot. Okay, so that's not a universal system of measurement. A universal system of measurement, all reality is based on a sphere. The sphere of the galaxy, the sphere of the solar system, the sphere of the sun, the sphere of the earth, the sphere of the atomic elements. Okay? Every sphere has minutes of arc, and every sphere has 21,600 minutes of arc around its circumference. Okay? Sound like a close number? Anyone ever heard of a nautical mile? Yeah. It's 21,600 nautical miles around the earth. When you break down that system of measurement, and we would call this geodetic measurements, okay, because it's based on the sphere of the earth itself. If we broke down the speed of light in geometric space and time, so this is also, we can't use our system of minutes and hours. You would have to use grid time. Okay? And when you break down the speed of light by grid time and by nautical miles or minutes of arc per second, light decelerates towards the center of a light field, whether it's a planet, a star, or an atom. The deceleration is from 144,000 minutes of arc per grid second. And that constant descension to the center of the light field is what creates your reality, and the inverse of that is what creates gravity. Okay? Just a little something for brain teaser for you. Not really related to commerce. You have a microphone?
Oh, so related to commerce. So a little bit of the study of the gold or the white gold or the Ark of the Covenant has brought me to connecting the light with gravity, which explained and answered a question I'd always had, is how the hell did they put those pyramids together? And they're breaking down this quantum equation to find out and discern that the nuclear body that exists within us, on the micro level, is exactly correlate to what's on the macro level, and thereby I don't know what else to say except for it's brilliant.
Actually, the funny thing is the pyramids by their original structure, those of you familiar with geometry and solving for the volume of a tetrahedron, the volume of the tetrahedron is directly related to this number when using pyramid inches, which incidentally are related to grid measurements.
What's his name, that guy? Fibonacci? Yeah, Nassim Haramein. Yeah. Nassim.
The who?
Nassim Haramein, have you heard?
The what? Is that the guy you were telling me about? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I still haven't seen the videos yet or anything. I will, I promise. And then we'll have a whole class on it.
For all of you on my email list, Nassim is going to be speaking here at some point. We haven't got a date set yet, but...
Yeah, I would love to hear it, but because I heard he's on par with a lot of this stuff. Do we have a microphone? Where are all the microphones?
Yeah, at 11 years old, he was questioning his science classroom equations. So,
at 11 years old, he was what?
Questioning his science classroom equations.
I started questioning at about 8.
Yeah.
And my first thing I questioned was my religion. I was brought up Catholic, and at about 8 years old, I thought, God, what a racket. And it really made me question everything from that point forward in my life. I've never taken anything for granted. I've always asked why, how. I didn't. When the teacher was explaining equations, I wanted to know the why. What I learned from my own studies of mathematics is that we're taught mathematics backwards. That in fact you should learn calculus first, not algebra first. Algebra and geometry, you're memorizing all these equations and formulas and right. Where did they come from? Why is that the y-slope intercept? I don't even know if that's a proper phrase. Again, it is? Okay. Like I'm trying to, connect with algebra. It's so long ago. But if you go through calculus, you see how you devise these equations. Rather than memorizing things, you should just like the forms that you're filling out, don't memorize what I say and listen to what I say when it comes to filling these forms out. Come to your own understanding. Learn to interpret the instructions. Read, see with the eyes to see, hear with the ears to hear, because they're telling you everything in the instructions by what they're not saying and by what they're saying.
Speaking of what they're not saying, Ron and I were having a discussion about on the 1040 on line in 44, it has C page 38 in parentheses. Now, when you have things in parentheses, it means...
it's not there.
Right. So when we're looking at these forms, we should pay particular attention to what's in parentheses or what's in the box. And then
what's in brackets, what's in a box, what's in parentheses, because it isn't there.
Right.
That's the law of vessels. That's why when you're in a courtroom, you're in a big box, and the judge is in his own little box, and the clerk is in her own little box, and the jury's in its own little box. They're separating everything, and they're even at different layers. The judge is not on an equal plane. He's on this plane. The only person you're on a plane with is the other guy standing at the table next to you. You guys are on an even plane. The jury's on a different plane. The clerk and the bailiff are on a different. The bailiff kind of roams around in our plane. But the judge is, witness. That's the other box, the witness box. So the witness is on a different plane. Judge is on a different plane than both of them. Clerk's on another plane. And literally, you'll see, here's the level of the witness box. Here's the level of the clerk. They're not on the same plane. The only people on plane with you are the guy standing next to you. And then if you're outside the bar, you're not there.
You're not visible.
Okay? So, again, Admiralty, it's a vessel. All these boxes have meaning.
The real question that I had was, it seems to me that this would be an invaluable topic, this quantum language, because everyone out there is talking about doing affirmations and thinking positive thoughts, but yet we're doing it in a fictionalized medium.
And we use negative language a lot. Like in quantum language, you would never use negative language. Like, for the this is not the that. You know what I mean? You would not use not. Not use not. Get it? Okay, so anytime you're using negative language, you're just like my take on the 2004 election. Everyone was focused on not having George Bush as a president. Who did we get for president? George Bush. We weren't focused on having someone be president. We were focused on someone not being president. Exactly. You're putting your energy into George Bush. So he became president. One of the funniest sights I ever saw, I was driving down the street, and this is soon after the George Bush, Dick Cheney war started. There was a anti-war protest, and just to piss them off, right next to them were a bunch of support our troops protesters, I'll call them. These two groups were battling. They were fighting, yelling. And I saw on the news later there was even a physical fight between these two groups. Anti-war protesters at war? Isn't that an interesting situation? It makes perfect sense because they're anti-war. Take the word anti out. What are they? They're war. Okay? Mother Teresa was approached. Will you attend our anti-war rally? She said no. When you have a rally for something, I'll come. But if you're going to have a rally against something, I'm not going to put my energy into it. So a pro-peace is not the same as an anti-war. Okay?
How do you take support our troops? Would you
If you were there as pro-peace and support our troops, you'd be there for the same cause. Why would you be fighting? Right? Because the people who are saying support the troops, they're not saying kill Iraqis. They're saying support our troops. That's kind of a peaceful kind of a come from.
Could I build on what we were talking about with Mark?
I'm not clear. Yeah, sure. Mark.
Line 44.
Okay.
Line 44 basically refers you over to the tax table. The question I have is that on 42 and beyond, it's calling for you to pay a tax.
Or assess a tax.
Assess a tax.
Not pay a tax. It's calling for you to assess a tax.
Assess a tax.
Aren't we on a self-assessment system?
That's where I was going, basically.
Yeah.
And if you're self-assessing it, why would you offer at that point in time to pay the tax? Why would you just claim the entire amount?
Is what you're reporting taxable events? Remember, are they taxing you on your labor? No. They can't. They don't have the right to tax you on your labor. They're taxing you on your banking. You took a benefit privilege of using Federal Reserve notes and the domestic system.
Correct.
So that's what you're getting taxed on. So assess the tax.
So you're still obligated to pay that portion.
Yeah, if you're doing the banking. If you live out in the middle of nowhere and you do all your exchanging through barter and gold and whatever else, and you're not using Federal Reserve notes or a bank, you don't owe a tax.
You couldn't claim anything either at that point.
No. But you're not liable for anything.
Correct. Got it.
think I'll pay this rather than going by the tax table?
I'm saying I would self-assess, and my self-assessment would probably be in alignment with the tax table. Actually, mine wouldn't, because I kind of fall outside of the tax table limits, but I would use the worksheet that it says if you make this much, calculate it this way. And I calculate it, and I assess myself on my banking activities.
That was my question. Thanks, Brad.
Anyone else? Feedback, questions, topics? Anything? No?
Does it need to be about this new strange language, or it can be something?
Yeah, no, it doesn't have to be on the new strange language.
The old strange language.
Okay, I'm almost done listening to Jack Smith, and I'm getting a little confused. We're supposed to send in a money order when we file our 1040 that matches the amount of the money that we're expecting back. I'm getting a little confused.
Okay. Let's look at what Jack's talking about there, and you determine for yourself whether or not you would use a money order. Okay. My understanding of what Jack is talking about when he's talking about setting in a money order or a 1040V, he's talking about offsetting the liability of the funds of your return. Okay? So, or offsetting the right or the use of the funds the total amount that you reported. So, let's say you reported $100,000 in income. That means there was $100,000 in liability out there because of your actions. That $100,000 in liability, he's saying offset it with an asset, which is the money order. Offset that public debt with private asset money. Now, the way that I may interpret that, because I am aligned with the idea of offsetting public liability. Okay? However, if what we're doing in this process and these procedures is identifying and declaring the abandonment of our interest, claiming the withholding or reporting the withholding of our interest, and then claiming a return of the interest, isn't the process of claiming a return of the interest removing the liability?
Sure, completes the circuit.
Completes the circuit. So it could be looked at that 1099A, 1099 OID, and a 1040 do what that money order did by identifying and declaring the abandonment of the funds. Now the bank owes us the interest back. Then we report that they haven't paid by reporting it withheld on the OID. And then we claim a return of that interest, which is going to be taxed and returned. Is your return taxable? No. If the return isn't taxable, is it creating a liability? No. Because every event that creates a liability is what's taxable.
So on this amount, this interest that we're asking back, or basically the principal that we're asking back from the bank, we're not asking for anything extra. We're just asking for our money back.
Yeah, the interest I created. And if you don't, you're just creating more debt. It's almost it's a responsibility. If you're a creditor, you're going to be responsible for all the debt you create and make sure you take it out of circulation. Now, when you get that check back, you endorse it and deposit it, guess what? You just put it back out there. But you didn't create new debt. You've kind of done a break even. And then we've discussed in here what I would start doing personally, buying up the debt of my city, buying up the debt of my county. You want to see sovereign states and sovereign people again? Pay off the debts. How many of you have heard about the new the new guidelines by which China can enter our country. Yeah, China, the creditor, can come in and seize any property that they want, send their military in. Or use ours. Now, how do we avoid that? Pay off the debt. If we, the people, hold all the treasury bonds, if we, the people, hold all the municipal bonds, who's in control? We are. If the United States defaults on its debts, who does the United States get turned over to? The people. And if we're the ones holding all the bonds, that means all the tax-free revenue of those bonds are coming to us, and then we're the ones putting it into effect in our community. You want there to be a children's program so that they're not on the streets? You want to stop violence in your neighborhood? You want there to be parks and recreational things? You want there to be something for the elderly? You build it. Take responsibility. Stop sitting on your ass and waiting for someone else to do it. Because guess what? They're not gonna. You should have a pretty good idea of how ineffectual they are. You want your community improved? Take responsibility for it. And if you own the debt of your community and you're making all the revenue that the government usually makes, guess what they're doing? They're collecting everyone's taxes and they're sending it to you. What are you going to do with that tax money? You're going to build your community. Hopefully. I mean, we're here as creditors, right? We're not here to somehow... The funny thing is, you'll have to, because you'll run out of things to spend your money on. It's like, okay, I got a boat, and I got a really cool car, and I got a really big house. Okay, but really, to keep getting the money, I got to keep spending it. It'll be an opposite paradigm of what we're in now. The wealthy hoard their money. Are they building in your community? No. But when the people catch on that everything I spend comes back, we're going to be stimulating activity in our economy. We're going to take responsibility for the condition of our economy. It's no longer going to be up to someone else. You know what's going to happen if everyone starts doing this? I've had people who come to me with like this whole, oh my God, what if everyone started doing this? Yikes, what would happen? Here's what would happen. I played it out. And from the way I analyzed it and broke it down, human labor would become the most expensive commodity on the planet. A Taco Bell manager would be making just as much as a bank manager. Yeah, probably more because it's a less desirable position. I mean, unless his passion is 59-cent tacos. If that's your passion, then you will be that. But do you see the power? That we will all be doing what we're passionate about. You're no longer going to be living from fear that I work at this place because I got to pay my bills. I'm going to work where I want and how I want and when I want, and thereby creating a very valuable commodity. Because if my goal is to provide some service to the community and I have a team of people that I need to compensate, well, for me to intrigue them in any which way to get out there and do something, I'm going to have to pay some serious dollars because they don't have to work. As long as they're directing commercial energy in their community, that is their work. They're directing commercial energy. And only you can do that. Remember, you take the people out of the bank, we're the ones pressing the buttons. You take people out of the equation, what do banks do? Nothing. They just sit there. They're buildings. We're the ones pressing the buttons and making it happen. We're just not taking responsibility for it yet.
Can you give some examples of buying back debt, maybe some scenarios you've played out?
Buying back debt? I would start at the city level. Start buying up all your city's debt. Once all your city's debt is owned by the citizens within the city, guess what? The city now is indebted to the people of the city. not to any outside creditors, not to the county of Orange, not to the state of California. You buy up all your county's debts after that. Yeah, bonds, municipal bonds. You buy up all of your county's debt. Now your county is no longer indebted to the state of California. You buy up all the state of California's debt. State of California is now in control of the property within the state of California. But who directs that control? The creditors. Who's the creditors? The ones holding the debt. And then you go on to pay the debt of the United States with you buying up all the U.S. Treasury bonds. Then you won't have to be scared of China taking over your country or coming in and taking your house because you're the holder of the debt. You've taken it upon yourself to be the sponsor of the credit. You're the one giving your nation, your state, your county, and your city the power to do what you want them to do. What an empowering position to be in. And that's something as a creditor I believe we should be looking at. Because as creditors, aren't we concerned with the condition of our communities, with the condition of the world as a whole? Aren't we a global community? Yeah.
This may be an off question, but can you OID bonds?
Can you OID bonds? Actually, OIDs are made for bonds. In what context are we talking about? See, a bond is issued at a discount. So there's an original issue discount built into a bond.
Right.
You buy a $10,000 bond, you buy it for $5,000, there's a $5,000 original issue discount.
Right. Say, for instance, municipality, like a city, they go and they bond their certain sections of their city, and they get money off of it, and they go and do improvements. Can that bond be OID to where it's paid down?
You mean by the city?
By the city.
Not necessarily. The city, because the city is a fiction, it's a dead thing.
The city's a corporation.
Just like it's an adverb fiction.
Right, but isn't a city a corporation, an entity itself?
It is.
Yeah.
It is a corporation. So it's dead. It has no commercial energy. Only the people pressing the buttons have the commercial energy.
Like the city administrator?
Like you.
Like me?
Yeah. Like anyone in the city. Anyone who drives through the city. You're all putting commercial energy into the city. You take all the people out of the city dies. I'm sure there's a Twilight episode in there somewhere. Okay, let me, oops.
You are muted.
Anyone,
you are unmuted.
Anyone on the phone have anything you want to ask or contribute? No? All righty. No, I didn't cut them off. I can see they're still on here. I've still got my live phone connection. Let me make sure. Are we live on the phone? Can I get some kind of feedback? Okay. Let me know you're alive. All righty. So nothing from the phone.
You are muted.
Okay.
You are unmuted.
Okay, got it. You have a microphone? Yeah.
So just to be clear, as it regards the people who are bonded and buying other entities' debt, and that is intention, a signature, and the understanding of the administrative process. Would that be accurate to say?
Oh my God, there was so much fiction in that language I can't even interpret what you're trying to say. Try putting in prepositions. No, try explaining to me another way. I didn't catch it. Your intention is not clear for me.
Okay, so let's just start with like the ABCs.
Okay, A, B, C, D, E, F.
I have a car that I'm driving of my ex-husband's. I've been bonded for a year, and I've been trying
Whoa. Back up.
What?
You're driving a car. It belongs to your ex-husband, and you're bonded. What does that mean? You have an insurance policy?
No. Well, I have a $300 million bond that I...
On the car?
No, on myself. on my
indemnifying yourself
on my straw man. Yeah.
Okay, so you're indemnifying your straw man.
I have been for a year trying to learn how to use this process to buy debts, like you were just speaking about a minute ago. So
you take out your checkbook. You walk down to the local private banker and you say, I want to buy municipal bonds. I want to buy this many thousands or tens of thousands of dollars worth, and you write a check. Make sense? Because then what are you doing? You're removing public debt. That's why all the income from it is tax-free. You're a creditor now to the city, to the county, to the state, or to the United States. If you're the creditor, the money coming in from being a creditor is tax-free. See, if you're alluding to using some kind of an asset to purchase these bonds, you're defeating the purpose. The purpose is to eliminate public debt. When I buy up these bonds, I'm eliminating, let's say I get a return for $200,000 from the IRS, and I take that return and I buy $200,000 worth of treasury bonds. I've now taken that $200,000 out of circulation. I've now reduced the public debt by $200,000, the principal on the public debt.
Then take that check that you wrote to buy the.
Yeah, and then get it back the next year, of course, and then do the same thing. Take out $200,000 more. You can do it every year.
Plus, you're spending the interest, and you get no idea you use that.
Exactly.
And you don't care if you make money on the bonds because your whole point is to remove the debt.
To do more, to remove more and more debt, remove more and more debt. Okay? Do you see how even a couple thousand people acting like creditors can have a profound effect on this nation?
So that would actually be like, instead of like, what is it? People like, donate money to the presidential election, to try to help the, the economy or something. I don't know what the theory there is, but and if everybody were doing that, the amount of money that was being spent in elections, if it was people were buying up the debt, it's like.
Yeah, if everyone was acting like a creditor and everyone was buying up the debt, all of a sudden all those yahoos on Capitol Hill would be spinning their wheels for no reason because we're in control. They're spinning their wheels, but we're not listening to them. We're just kind of doing our own thing. Like, okay, you guys can play politician all day long, but they're not having any effect on your community because you're the one who's a creditor to your community. You're the one having an effect on your community. Whatever they're saying out there doesn't matter.
Yeah, it wouldn't be such a prized position anymore.
No. It'd be whoever wants to play politician, go play politician. Whoever wants to play banker, go play banker. But it's not like you're going to be making more than the guy at Taco Bell. Because the guy at Taco Bell is going to be making just as much as any politician. So if that's your passion, if your passion is legislation, then you go be a politician. If your passion is being in Washington, D.C. and rubbing elbows with a bunch of other guys who are passionate about voting on stuff and sitting in rooms for long hours, have at it. If your passion is healing people, then you will be a healer. If your passion is art, you will be an artist. Yeah, imagine artists that can actually make a living.
Here's an off-the-wall question. Can you use a private money order to buy up municipal bonds?
We just had that question.
Right.
and what I was saying is you're missing the point. I'm not saying you can't do it, but you're kind of missing the point. The point is to take out the liability. We want to remove the liability. If we're buying it from the asset side, that's fine. We've removed the debt in the sense that we've taken the bonds, but we haven't taken liability funds out of circulation in the process. Okay? So it's kind of like a zero-sum game. Well, you created an asset which is going to purchase this debt, right? But now this debt has revenue coming off of it to you, and that's going to kind of start to add to the liability because you're going to start spending it. And if you don't claim it back, then you're just going to recreate the problem all over again.
Well, once you bring private money into the public, it's new money.
If it, It depends on the method. If you're bringing private money into the public to offset a public debt, then it's a wash. Right. It's a zero-sum game. So if there's an obligation out there for $100,000 and I write a check off a closed bank account and I go through the DTC and I have the DTC wire the funds to the asset side of that account, then I'm just offsetting the debt. I'm saying, here, I've created an asset, and the asset's going to offset this liability. So now it's a wash, and there's no debt now. So I have removed a debt in that sense, but I've done it strictly from the asset side. I'm not taking liability. See, if I just take, let's say there's a liability here, and I take liability funds to pay it, I've really just created another liability.
Well, that's what I was talking about, actually.
Yeah. But if this is a treasury bond, by purchasing the treasury bond, I'm purchasing the debt. So I'm taking these liability funds out of circulation, which I believe is maybe what happens when you buy a money order. I thought it was interesting the other day because the last time I bought a money order, I did it with my debit card. So this time I went into the post office. I'm like, hey, I need an $800 money order. She says, all right. And I whip out my credit card. She says, oh, you can't use that. I go, what? I go, I used it last time. She says, no, we only take debit cards. Because it's taking that cash out of circulation. Okay? And a money order is probably the only substance-backed money in the public. And it's interesting that there has to be something the equivalent of cash given for it. And remember, when I take cash out of the bank, who's holding the interest? I am. So if I take that interest and get a money order with it, have I removed that interest from circulation? There's a confused look over here. Go ahead, microphone.
So doesn't the Federal Reserve, when you take money out of the bank as your ATM card, you take cash, the Federal Reserve does the same thing to that bank as they do if you write a check. So you need to remove some of your deposits.
So the bank, I'm not saying the bank isn't withholding some interest from that account. However, they dispersed Federal Reserve notes in exchange. See, so you're holding Federal Reserve notes which are equivalent to this withholding, right? So I withdraw $1,000. And typically, like if I wrote a $1,000 check, we know that the bank is going to withhold $1,000 worth of my interest from my account. However, if at the same time I get that in Federal Reserve notes, I'm now holding the interest in the asset. Remember, the interest is always the liability side of the account. If I'm holding Federal Reserve notes, I'm holding the interest to the asset I just created. I created an asset because I authorized the use of my credit, but I'm holding the interest.
But that interest you're holding is just another promissory note, though.
Yeah, they are. They're just debt obligations.
Is the difference that you're not signing it?
Okay, let's say I write a check, but I'm just holding the check. Right? It may be an asset, but it's not changing the balances of anything until I hand it over. So as soon as I take that cash and get rid of it, now I've done something. But if I'm holding the cash and I don't do anything with that cash, I'm holding the interest in the asset.
Okay, so the follow-up to that is...
Because everything on the public side is debt instruments. Everything that you think is money, it's always debt.
Right.
A Federal Reserve note is a bill of exchange. It's a debt instrument. A check is a debt instrument. A promissory note is a debt instrument. A money order is a debt instrument. Everything that you know of as money is debt. It's not actually money. Unless you're talking about gold coin. Yeah, it's a note.
Right. Okay, so now the follow-up to that is if you haven't held on to that cash, if you haven't socked it away in your mattress somewhere and you've purchased things with it, is that still withheld by the bank? Is that OID-able?
No.
No.
It's a zero-sum game.
So you should separate your cash.
You could go ahead and OID it, and you'll probably get away with it. Okay, but what I'm saying is it's a zero-sum game. If you're holding the interest, then the interest wasn't withheld. Even if you're holding it in a sock in your mattress and it's not physically on your person, you've withheld the interest, not the bank. I'm not saying the bank didn't withhold some interest. I'm not saying that, but it's a zero-sum game. If my balance went down 1,000 and I'm actually holding that 1,000, see, in the case of a check, I create that debt instrument, it goes out into the world, the bank withholds the interest, but they don't give it back to me, so I'm not holding the interest. You see, zero-sum game? Zero-sum game. Get that term into your head and really understand what that means. Because then, when you understand the zero-sum game, you understand the entire economic system. Because there's always interest being withheld, assets and liabilities, and in the end, it all balances out to zero.
So is it it makes sense, like they give you they charge the high interest to get the cash advance. Is it sort of that you spend out the money quick? You know what I mean? Like if you were to go get cash advance off a credit card, you get usually like a high rate. So, but the intent from them, would it be so that you spend that money out? Do you know what I mean? Versus you wouldn't really hold on to it because you're like, man, I'm paid so much interest for this money. I'm gonna put it to use quickly. It's not, you know what I mean? Because it's not free money.
I guess you could look at it like that. I don't know if that's their one and only intention, because there is the usury tax, and they can get away with a high usury tax by forwarding you the cash. And usually there's a limit to what they'll let you take out in cash. You can't just take out your whole credit line, right? Right? Because there's basically, if they had to hand you all the interest, well, then they've got nothing on their books that they can bank with, because you're holding all the interest, and they've got this asset that now has no interest that they can do banking with, because they can only bank with the money over here on the right-hand side of the column, the liability funds, the interest. That's all they can trade around. They can't use the assets. The assets can only be held in the private. They can't be used in the public as money. Go ahead.
2 points. If the Federal Reserve turns around and buys $1 trillion from the Treasury, that will be inflationary. If the Treasury instead sells bonds offshore, that's not as much inflation as it would be with the Fed to buy it, because it opens up the spigot. 2, by us doing this procedure, I still maintain it increases the velocity of money.
It does.
And
not the supply, the velocity. It increases the velocity of money, not the supply of money.
But inherent in that concept of velocity, it does increase inflation on a broad basis.
What increases inflation?
The velocity.
No, it doesn't. Aren't they mutually exclusive? How does the velocity? The only thing that changes the value of money is the supply. Velocity doesn't change the supply.
No, but it increases. If you take specific time schedules for each dollar as it passes hands, the velocity would increase the supply of money inherently.
I don't see. Show me mathematically how that happens, because it doesn't. There's no way that's.
If you put it on if you drew a x-axis, y-axis.
Should draw an x-axis, y-axis.
X-axis, y-axis. Let me do that one too.
Okay, you want just the positives?
Just the
L's. Okay. Is that good?
That's good.
Okay.
If you have a specific time frame across the bottom.
Time. Microphone.
No, if you have a specific time frame across the bottom of time, and you have a specific velocity of $1.
What is velocity?
Velocity is the number of hands it passes through at a specific time.
No, I mean in physics.
Speed. It's a specific speed.
Speed over time?
Speed over time.
Or is it speed times time? Is that what it is? What's velocity?
Velocity, speed.
See, if I've got an hour and I'm traveling at 60 miles per, well, that's a velocity. If I go 60 miles in an hour, so here's miles, right? This is distance. Here's time. Okay? So if I'm going a distance of 60 miles inside of an hour, this is 60 miles an hour, right? If I reduce in a same hour, I only go 30 miles. This is the drop in velocity, right? Okay. So, now what does this signify in the velocity of money?
The number of hands that passes from individual.
So we'll call the number of hands the distance.
That's fine.
Okay.
What I'm trying to show to you is that underneath a fixed velocity, that being with, I would call it at this point, in their lack of a better word, a species-based currency. If you were to use the system we're talking about, it would go from a linear to I think it's called a hyperbolic curve.
Okay.
Where the velocity would increase at an increasing rate.
But do you see that the supply isn't a factor?
Oh, I think supply is not a factor, correct? But underneath the increased velocity, it'll become increasingly hyperbolic.
Right. That's what in my breakdown of this. Right. That's why human labor goes from here to here.
Well, the cost of it will, yes, as the velocity increases.
Because demand high, supply low. Supply and demand economics, right?
I agree with that. But the cost of the labor will increase, correct? Everything will increase. Not just labor, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, but if everything's increasing, you have no inflation. It's all relative. So what happens is when we start demanding salaries of $55 million a year, then we switch to the Amero and they go, okay, every Amero is worth $100,000. Well, now your salary is only $50,000 a year. Okay? But in reality, that Amero is going to buy a lot more than the old dollars used to. So in reality, labor, so yeah, it seems outrageous. Oh my God, a $55 million a year, but it's only in relation to those things we buy.
Correct.
The fact is, houses cost $1 million. So of course, the labor that it takes to go into building that house is going to increase dramatically because of the value that we're putting on the house. If we say that houses are $100, all of a sudden everything changes. Get it out of your head that $1 means anything. It doesn't mean anything. It's not gold. It doesn't have a set value. The fact is, we're selling houses for $1 million, so we're dealing with really big numbers. You don't want such big numbers? Start using smaller numbers. Sell houses for $100, because then $1,000 would be a lot.
But underneath the system we're talking about, as you're showing us here, you'd have an increased inflation rate, I believe. And as a result of that, it would be...
Doesn't inflation...
Let me just finish what I'm saying.
Okay.
As you would have an increased inflation rate on an overall basis of all the commodities and labor included in a product, you would also at the same time have increasing tax rates and increasing government relative tax. It's more of an inflation tax in the middle class as much as anything else that we're experiencing over the past few years as well.
Okay. Again, it's all fiction. I don't see your point. It doesn't equate to what we're talking about as far as I can see. Okay. Because as far as I'm concerned, no matter what the velocity is and how money is exchanging, the rate, inflation is what? The value of the dollar, right? The value is arbitrary. It doesn't matter because when you get to an even plane, it all is relative. So whether you're using it more and it becomes less valuable, if the scale is everything now costs less, there is no inflation. If the value seems to be less and everything costs more, but there's an even scale, meaning a house costs $1 million, so people get paid $1 million. Okay.
I would sooner have a higher velocity than an increased supply, if that's the direction you're trying to tell me.
An increase in supply?
I would sooner have an increase in velocity
over
an increase in supply.
If we're acting like creditors, we're removing the supply.
Correct.
If we're removing the supply, the value goes up. That's not inflationary, that's deflationary.
But only by lieu of the fact that your system would work here is because of the increased velocity of the dollars.
The velocity is you can't equate velocity. Velocity is time and the changing hands. It has nothing to do with the supply. Velocity and supply are two totally different things. That's like saying the velocity has something to do, your velocity in your car on the street has something to do with the car or the street. No. It has to do with the time and the distance. You can't bring in this third factor that has nothing to do with the mathematics of it and say it's affecting it.
If you take supply out of the equation, it'll have a direct relationship at that point of dampening the velocity.
Not necessarily. It may affect the velocity in that we're not moving it as much, because if you're considering the velocity to include the amount, which it doesn't, like I have $1 million. If a house costs $100, it doesn't matter how many house transactions are happening at $100 or at $1 million. If the supply goes down and the value goes up, the house will only be $100, but there'll be just as many house transactions as there were before. There'll be just as many people buying popcorn. It's not like all of a sudden I can consume 3 times as much as I have before.
I think we'll agree to disagree as far as that individual point versus the supply versus velocity.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think they're interrelated.
I'm comfortable with that.
They are interrelated, though.
How much more time do we have?
We got a little bit of time, about 10, 15 minutes. Yeah, let's switch tapes real quick since we're at a break point. Here we go.
Oh, I see. Correct.
And if they were thinking, they're not thinking as creditors, they're just thinking as debtors. Correct. With taxes. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And if they were thinking as debtors, they'll have to file the municipals and
You have a question?
treasury bonds.
As long as they're
Back to quantum language.
Okay.
Can we get some more examples on how to use this effectively and on a daily basis?
Yeah. I mean, I think some of again, you guys are going to want to do some research on your own because this is an extensive topic. There's really a lot more to it than I can write up here on the board. But some things to be mindful of. Remember when I wrote down the prepositions for, of, with, and we showed cause, effect, possession, and authority? When you're writing, especially those of you who may be lawyers and whatnot, be mindful that having, let's say, a statement, and I put my name at the beginning of the statement, I am now unaffected by everything that comes after. I am, what's the word? Not immune, but... No. You guys are no help when I'm at a loss for words, just so you know. All right, so if I wanted to associate the statement that followed my name, but I wanted to make the name responsible for whatever is being said in the statement, it would be the last thing in the statement after by. It creates accountability and responsibility. Whereas your name at the beginning disqualifies you from being attached to the statement following. So if you make a claim, the defendant did this, the defendant didn't do anything. The defendant's at the beginning of the statement. Whatever happens after the defendant is different from the defendant. If I describe the action by the defendant, I've now put the defendant in the responsible part of the statement, the authorized party or the authority of the statement. Okay? So that's just something to be mindful of when you're creating a statement, that by having a subject at the beginning of the statement, you're not this subject is set apart from what comes after the statement.
So if you do it under penalty of perjury, you put your name in the front rather than the back.
Yeah. If you put your name at the front, that would indemnify you from anything that follows. And that's actually, and judges know this, and they look for this.
Under the system.
Yeah. They look for these kinds of statements when you make the defendant, the plaintiff, whatever at the beginning, they're indemnified through the rest of the statement. But if you put by the judge at the end, all of a sudden all the things you just said before that just made the judge responsible for these actions. Okay?
So when you write one of those sentences like I or we, comma, your name, comma, and all that stuff,
you're indemnifying yourself from the rest of the statement. And you're not, and let's say I, Brandon Alexander Adams, declare under penalties of perjury. Okay, well, that's not saying anything.
But that's
holding me free and clear of the declaration of penalties of perjury.
Right, but on a notary acknowledgement, the notary's name is up in the front.
Right.
As a witness.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm not saying that they're...
But then
again,
on the bottom it has
everything you've seen is all fiction. It's all adverb-verb fiction all day long.
So then the actual result of that, if it is written that way, is that it's left up to interpretation.
Exactly.
Right? So that's where you went into the judicial interpretation. So if it ends up going to court, the judge will decide, rather than you having control from the beginning of writing your contract.
Exactly.
Defining your nouns or defining your nouns.
Right. Defining your nouns and associating the responsible parties correctly. Because if you leave it up for interpretation, you're not saying anything.
Could you give an example? Like, let's say Brandon is responsible for buying certain things, and let's break that down and see how that's false. And then
we can do that.
How else could we write it so that we are in control?
Okay. Let's say
which we all have to send in with our 1099As that are corrected or marked bad.
Okay. Brandon must drive his brother home. He doesn't actually have to because his brother's got his own car. But first we'll identify how this is fiction and how I'm not really saying anything. Okay? What are my quote-unquote nouns? You'd think Brandon, right? But there's no preposition, so it's not guaranteed. It could be an adverb. Adverb, verb, or adverb, adverb, verb, or adjective, adverb, verb. Right? Adverb, verb, or adverb, adverb, verb. Right? So already, just by the way that this statement is written, it can be broken down to be fictional 100 different ways. And it's completely up to interpretation. So, how can we say the same statement in truth or in quantum such that it becomes clear facts with clear knowns or nouns? Okay, so somebody write this down so I remember what it is. Brandon must drive his brother home. Okay. Brandon must drive his brother home. Okay. For the driving of this claimant's brother, for the driving of this claimant's brother is with the duty, he said duty, is with the duty of this claimant by this claimant. Oh, did I put home? For the driving of this claimant's brother is with the duty of this claim. Okay. But for the driving of this claimant's brother is with the duty of the driving of the claimant's brother to the claimant's home. By this claimant. No, there's a much easier way to say this. You have to hate it. You have to. Okay. So, poetry is always up for interpretation. That's what any poet will tell you. Any poet or musician will tell you their art is always up for interpretation.
Correct. That's why it's so broadly applicable.
Uh-huh. Okay. So, yeah, there's definitely a better way of saying this. For the driving of this claimant's brother, here, for the driving of the claimant's brother to the claimant's house is with the duty of this claimant by this claimant. Okay? I forgot. I could have just put to the claimant's house or to the brother's house or to the claimant's brother's house, claimants, hyphen, brothers, hyphens, house.
This language will cause a rebellion.
No, it won't. No, it won't. This language is the only way to state facts clearly so that there is no room for interpretation and thereby will eliminate rebellions and wars and misunderstandings.
Okay, so a couple of things. You mentioned this language. Is it going to be starting to be utilized in this like global legal system?
Yes.
And is there a deadline, as you know of?
Not that I know of. I imagine, because things work so slowly in the public, I would imagine they've got at least a decade to get this worked out, because they've already been working on it for about a decade.
Okay.
So
my second part is,
multiple decades.
Like the birth certificate bond template that, says I, so-and-so, state, blah, blah, blah. So at some point, these documents are going to be basically negated.
Useless, null and void.
useless.
They already are.
Right.
They're already
fictitious.
adverb, verb, fiction.
Right.
They're all up for interpretation. But right now, they're currently writing international treaties this way. They're
Correct.
currently going to, the restructuring of the entire world economic system, they're going to be using this kind of language on the bonds, on all the instruments that are being passed. Okay?
So my point is that at some point, since that's going to be changed
Yeah,
in the global system,
you should
then
learn it.
all this stuff that we're doing now will basically be thrown out, and any processes that we are doing will basically turn us from being a creditor into a frivolous filing debtor.
Are you taking the position that you're not already a frivolous filing debtor?
Well, no, I'm totally clear that I am. What I'm saying, I'm saying that it seems that it will be flipped around such that there will be another class at some point that you'll be giving us to understand what's going on. Or I will be doing
Okay, I was going to say, come on, we're creditors here, you guys. I'm not at the authority. You need to pick up
the ball.
Start,
Right.
pick up
But
the ball and run with
say,
it.
I'm just thinking that's what seems to be put in place. So the instruments that I'm doing now will need to be relearned in a whole new fashion.
No, all you need to do is learn how to state facts in quantum and then rewrite them. You can rewrite them all yourself because you understand how to translate from Constitution of the United States to a proper quantum interpretation, or how to translate United States to for the Union States of the North American Republic. You know how to take a term that's up for interpretation and know what you want to say. When you say United States, you may know what you mean by it. To you, it means something. I don't know what it means. but it means something to you. Okay? But if you want other people to see it the way that you see it, you have to put it in quantum so that it's backwards, forwards means the same thing in 5,000 different languages.
And this would be applicable today to be rewriting like the bond template and sending
Yeah,
it down.
you could do it now. I already have bonds written in this language.
Clear.
I have a claim of the life, which is the equivalent of a birth certificate in this language. Okay? You could put, I'm not saying you can't, I have a code of the life that I live my life by that's in this language. I'm starting to integrate it because I see the value of it and because I put myself into a big game. I'm playing a huge game. So I need to be able to do international claims. If I want to make a claim against Russia, I can do it, and I can win. Okay? If I want to do a claim against the United States or for the Republic or for the Union States of the American Republic, then I can. Or for the Union States of the American democracy. Yeah, of course there's hyphens in there. Whenever I'm compounding nouns, there's a hyphen in there. David Wynn Miller, he actually speaks the... Yeah, no, when he says his name, he says I'm colon judge, colon David, hyphen Wynn, colon, or no, he says full colon. Full colon judge, full colon David, hyphen Wynn, full colon Miller. That's how he says his name. Yeah, he's full colon all the way. Now, I'm putting the prepositional phrases there so that you know that any words that follow the prepositional phrase are compound words. And in fact, in many languages, when you put two nouns together, they do automatically make them into one word, either by hyphenating them or by combining them into one word. There's words in the German language that are just, it's like literally like 37 letters, but it's like the combination of 5 different words because they're stating, like you guys should see the Hawaiian Constitution. The Hawaiian Constitution has compound words that are like 10 words long. This word hyphen, this word hyphen, this word hyphen, this word hyphen, this word. But each hyphenation of that word, you're taking and you're subcategorizing, so that you're very specific. This is what I'm talking about. Okay? Like the contract charter vessel. That's how you may refer to your contract. The contract charter vessel. Because you're being more specific. You're bringing it down to be more concise, like American or North American Republic. If I just said American Republic, well, is it the South American Republic or is it the North American Republic? Okay, so you're not as specific.
I was just thinking that it would be a good idea for all of us to learn this, especially before the IRS implements into their tax forms.
Oh, yeah.
It'll really be confusing to do our taxes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, in reality, I don't think this will ever be a public language because they don't want you to know this language. Yeah. They don't want you to be able to state facts all of a sudden, then they're going to be liable for stuff. You know what I mean? That's the last thing they want is liability and responsibility. Would it eliminate? Actually, yes, you're quite right. The legal system, well, for one, they'd have to write all the laws in quantum. You write all the laws in quantum, oh my God, the laws aren't up for interpretation? What the hell are judges going to do? They're going to have to analyze the document. What does the law say? Did he do that? No. Not, well, what does the law maybe say? And we've got all these adverb-verb fictions in here, so it's totally up to the judge to decide what the hell the law is saying. And then he decides how he's going to apply it. Whereas if it's in quantum language, this is the law, and these are the terms, then there is no interpretation, or it's not open to interpretation. It's clear and concise because when you're writing a law, you're going to have definitions for everything. Everything's going to be in quantum. Everything's going to be multiple compound nouns so that it's very specific what it is we're talking about. When we say driver, it's not just going to be a driver. It's going to be a California vessel, driver, something, something. You know what I mean? It's going to get very specific. That's what we're talking about. Okay?
Not a golf club.
Exactly, not a golf club.
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure.
I was just wondering if I should go out and buy that Pigeon to English dictionary.
Maybe. I don't know if Hawaiian slang necessarily is the same as what we consider the natural Hawaiian language.
I was thinking like.
Do they speak that way? Is Pigeon like that? Oh yeah. It is. They speak in preposition. Oh okay. I was like, wow.
For the plate lunch is the eating by the brother.
For the knowledge. for the brada, abra. For the knowledge. For the knowledge of the Jedi is with the Yoda of the temple. What's that?
There's some of that, I guess, but not. I mean, it's a hybrid. So.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, how many of them actually speak their native language? Very few of them. And actually, there are some African nations that also speak this way. Small tribes. Yeah. They speak. Did somebody say Ewoks? I don't know if Ewoks speak this way. The Wookiees? He's saying, for the Han Solo of the Millennium Falcon. Okay. Oh, she's looking for the microphone.
Okay. Question. So, is my bond a pass-through account?
Is your what?
My bond.
Uh-huh. A pass-through account.
Yes.
Is your bond a pass-through account? Is your bond a pass-through account? What is a pass-through account? Let's define it.
I'll do my best.
Looks like an adverb-verb fiction to me.
I'm going to give it to you in layman's terms because that's about all I can do.
Okay.
Can I take the liability or the loan that is still due on the car that I'm driving that's in someone else's name out of circulation with the use of either a 1099 or my bond?
That was plain English. Okay, so what
To
are you trying?
me it
What
was.
are you taking out of circulation?
Okay.
The loan or
There's
there's a-
$7,000 left on
There's
the
a loan
on the car.
There's a loan on a car, but you're not the principal on the loan.
Right.
And what do you want to do? You want to remove the loan. No, you don't have any. You don't have any interest. Yeah, you have no interest. So you can't just go around. You can't just go around paying your brother's debts.
Why not?
Actually, you can. You can pay your brother's debts, but you can't claim your brother's interest.
Correct.
Okay?
So you can't use the bond?
So you can't use the bond. The bond. Okay, you guys, the private bonds aren't meant for the public. They're not meant for the public. They're meant for private. And when you learn how to operate on the private side and through the asset side of the account, then they'll become relevant. But right now, you're trying to mix the two worlds. You're being double-minded. Being double-minded is dangerous.
So, how do you ask questions in now-time quantum language, or do you ask questions? Or can you ask questions? I guess that's
What's the only verb? What's the only verb?
Is and are. Oh, so then you just put it in the front.
Now, if I follow that with anything, isn't it going to be a question?
That is correct.
Okay. And notice, did I answer? Or did I ask you a question? Exactly. Yeah, I do it all the time.
Is it possible to offset, discharge my brother's debts?
Offset or discharge? We're talking about two different things. Okay. Is it possible to discharge your brother's debt? Yes.
With? And if so, yeah, how? And I request that you answer my question.
Can
by
I
my
get
mother's
home?
What?
Can I get home? How? There's really 100 ways for me to get home, right? So, can you be any more vague?
Welcome to my world.
So, what about if you're on a credit card and you're a joint you're on a joint account, but it's not your card, but you're on the card? Can you go and?
Are you the guarantor?
No.
So did they withhold your funds?
No.
Or your interest? So
well, I don't know because I don't know how
can
it's
you
written
claim
up
the
on there.
withholding of someone else's interest? If you're not the guarantor, is it your interest? Did I answer any questions? Notice, do you guys see how as a creditor asking questions can lead to answers? That I'm not obstructing, am I?
You're leading me to get to my own answer.
Exactly. Correct. So, and it's always the question. It's always the question. I'm not obstructing, I'm not delaying, but I'm leading you to take a position. I'm not going to take one. You go ahead and take one. Okay?
We're now aware that you can't buy money orders at the post office with credit cards.
Yes.
And we had talked about fractionalizing before.
Yes.
So then it comes back to, can you, like, say one had a business account that they had, and then they wanted to make a payment like on a home loan. Could they write a check from their business account, put it into their personal account to pay their home loan or something like that? Can you owe ID the interest from both of those accounts, or is that doubling up?
Let's look at the zero-sum game. Okay? So you've got account A, you've got account B, right? These are both deposit accounts. This one has $1,000 of interest, $1,000 of asset on this side. This one has $100 of asset and $100 of interest. I write a check from account A to account B for $500. My interest is reduced by $500 over here. However, as soon as I endorse and deposit the check over here, my interest increases by $500 over here. Are we at a zero sum? Yes. I've just moved the interest from here to here. So was the interest withheld? I'm not saying that the bank didn't withhold some interest, but in my zero-sum game, if I claim back this interest, am I at a zero sum? No. If I claim back $500, now I'm going to have an additional $500. I'm going to create $500 in debt and liability. Okay, so always look at it as your own ledger. Does your own ledger come to zero? Okay, that's just something to, again, be mindful of, that it's a zero-sum game, and if you're just moving interest around. Now, in the case of a credit card, okay, so now I charge $500 on my credit card, okay, which is going to lower the balance on my credit card. So I've got $500 in withholding over here, right, off of that credit card. But now there's a $500 obligation on this account. If I pay this obligation with this $500, $500 is being withheld, and it's offsetting this obligation. So interest withheld here, interest withheld here. That's $1,000 of interest withheld. Only $500 was spent. But $500 was spent out of here. Did this bank not get the $500 payment and get to fractionalize off that $500 payment? Right? Okay. So that's why the credit card method is always incorporated in with our fractionalizing examples. Because the credit card isn't shifting interest. When you use the credit card, interest is withheld. When you write a check to pay off the obligation of the credit card, interest is withheld. And you didn't get that interest in either case. So for the zero-sum game to play out, you've got to claim both of those back. Can you hand him
like what I'm hearing is like on all levels, it's like it's not you, but it seems like the game is being responsible, but taking as much liability out of all the equations as possible. So like when I'm asking questions and not statements, I'm in a position of creating less confusion. Like I'm less liable and creating more than what's already there, right? Like so if you have a question for me and I don't really answer it, but I get your question, I give your question back to you, but such that you get it in a new way, so you get your own answer. It's like I'm serving the most because I'm adding the least, kind of a thing, right? I don't know.
Can you be serving without taking a position?
Absolutely.
Did I just achieve that? Okay. By asking a question. Go ahead.
In quantum language, the statement, I am that I am, what is being said there?
Let's look.
And there's no commas, I guess, so just all one sentence.
Well, not if it's spoken. Did you speak a comma?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, where was the comma?
It was after that.
At the end?
After
after
the word
that.
Yeah.
Okay. I am that. I am. Okay, so how would we break this down in quantum? I am that. I am. Is this not? Am I am that. I am. So, could the equivalent of a statement like this be, there is one of which I am? There is the one of which you are? If I am of the one and you are of the one, are we of the one? Are we one? Now, I'm not stating it in quantum, but what I'm trying to delineate or lead here is, I believe in the Bible, there's a statement, something to the effect of, I and the Father are one. When we're all on an even...
We haven't been able to hear you for the last 20 minutes.
Oh, shucks. Yeah.
I want to hear about velocity.
All right. All righty. So, hold on. Are we out of time on the video? Okay. What is it? What's that mean?
But it's not a direct transliteration from the ancient Torah.
You just said that it was the same. I said, what does that mean? Oh, well, give me the literal translation.
Well, the literal translation is being is being.
There you go. Being is being. So it's the same as saying I am equals I am. Right? So not really. Yeah, I mean you're talking about an adverb verb fiction anyways. When you try to give yourself a title and separate yourself, you're creating a fiction no matter what. Okay? You guys have heard me say that no matter how you state your name, whether it's all uppercase, lowercase, my belief is that it's always a fiction. It's always a vessel. That only that without a title is truth. Because I am that I am, we are that we are. The one equals the one. I and the Father are one. I am not separate. The I, remember we were talking about in the context of making a distinction. What is this? What is this? What is this? That's what it is.
Depends on what the definition of is.
That was pretty close.
So if I give it a title, I've put it into commerce. I've fictionalized it. I've made a distinction. What is the thing making the distinctions? That which we call I. Ever heard a Rastafarian say I and I? Think hard about what that might mean. Okay? Because an I and I is making the distinctions. You can't distinguish I. We can't hold I. We can't see I. Can you know I? What is the knower of the knowing? Who is the knower of the knowing? For the knower of the knowing is with the claims by the knower, with the knowledge of the knower. What identifies it? What is making the distinctions? Like I could say soul, I could say my mind, I could say, but those are all distinctions. You can, even if you say God, you've made a distinction. You've taken God and made him into a pen. He's this. This is God. No, it isn't. Because God and I are one. And the one, the I, is making the distinction, is the one interpreting what this is and means and gives it meaning. What is the thing giving things meaning? That is where we're going with this phrase. I am that I am. It's the background, the divine, so to speak, the divine with the spiritual. We can't make a distinction of the divine. We can't make a distinction of God. I mean, even in the Ten Commandments, what does it say about idolatry? It says don't do it. It says it's bad. You know why? Because you're trying to make a distinction of something that is making the distinctions. Does that make sense?
Can you call it consciousness or awareness?
That's a distinction. Consciousness, awareness, that's a distinction. You've identified it. You've separated it from the whole. What's that?
What is conscious? Who is experiencing the consciousness?
Yeah, who's the experiencer of the consciousness? What is the experiencer of the consciousness? No, you've made a distinction. No matter what you try to call it and how you try to identify it, wrong, because it ain't that. As soon as you try to make it a that ain't what it is. You can say that, but that's a distinction. Remember, the experiencer of the experience is the I.
As soon as you label it, you've stopped experiencing it.
Exactly. You've taken it out of the whole. You've separated it. It's no longer part of the whole and part of the one. So if I say, I am Brandon, that's a fiction. No matter, even if I state it in quantum. For the I that is of the Brandon Alexander of the family Adams is with this claimant's claim of this claimant's knowledge. Like, so in reality, when you try to make a distinction, you're creating a vessel in the sea of space, and it is a fiction. Always a fiction. Remember we were talking about going to the non-commercial zone, that which in the Bible is referred to as Eden. And Eden only exists when there were no debts. As soon as there was a debt, we were expelled from the non-commercial zone into the commercial zone. Because when there's debts, now you got creditors and debtors, and you got payment of debts. So you've got commerce. So when we all treat each other as one, see each other as one, there will be no debt. When there's no debt, you'll have Eden. But not until everyone is willing to step up and be a creditor. That's 100%. As soon as you got one debtor in the mix, you've got commerce. Because for him to be a debtor, he's got to create a credit-debt situation between someone. And in that point, you've got commerce. Commerce is debt and credit.
You can have someone willing to be a.
Turn it on. Hold it up to your face.
If you're not willing to accept a debt, are you creating debtors?
If you're not willing to accept, so you're a belligerent debtor.
No. That's not what I'm talking about. If everyone's a creditor and all of a sudden we have one debtor.
If everyone's a creditor and
someone's got to interact with the debtor, right?
We see, yeah, somebody has to. That's why we still got commerce. So, but if we are one and we see each other as one, I stop separating based on my language, my nation of origin, my color, my culture, the food that I eat, my religion, the style of my hair, the style of my clothes. We separate, and that's what we focus on. You're making these distinctions and separating one from the other. When you do that, that's creating debtors and creditors. When we all see each other as one, you would never treat yourself, well, let me take that back, because we actually treat ourselves pretty horribly, but if we saw that all was love, and love connected all, and we all treated each other as the one, as the love, then we wouldn't have the situation we have. We could be above and beyond the commercial system. But not until we stop separating ourselves by nation, by state, by race, by language, by religion, by anything. You separate people by anything. You're dividing. By dividing, you're falsely separating each from the whole. You're separating yourself from God by believing that America is greater than any other nation. You're separating yourself from God by believing that people who speak English are better than people who speak Chinese. You're separating yourself from the whole when you see that I believe in this religion and my religion's right, and they believe in this religion and their religion's wrong. You see the situation we create. And really, that's the true path of the creditor, is the path of eliminating division. Because who wants world peace? Anyone? Okay. Is it possible without dividing? Or, did I say that right? Is it possible by dividing? No. It's not possible. Because if I identify a difference and I focus on that difference, we'll fight about the difference.
Right, and so that duality in our two jurisdictions here is part of that.
Yes.
It seems like the hippies had the names like River and Rain.
Hey, careful. I have a daughter named Lumina and a daughter named Harmony.
No. It genuinely seems like, I always liked it. I always wish I had one of those names because I'm serious. Because I've always seen it as like it's clearly like then I'm not focusing on me, and then when I say my name, it's actually I'm looking for that possibility in you, right? Whoever you are, and vice versa. So it gets rid of the ego, the limit, and it's not that it still defines something, but the definition is so much bigger and encompassing and including than Peter.
Yeah, I always liked Native American names.
Yeah. But I could I actually go and do that and create a name that, change your name, but still with all your bonds and all that stuff, you could still do the transfer so you wouldn't, nix any of that stuff, right? You carry it over or no?
Are you the name?
No.
Are you any name?
No.
What is a name? It's a title. What's a title? It's fiction. So no matter what title you want to go by, it's always fiction. The title is not you. You're that thing that makes the distinctions. And so therefore you cannot be made into a distinction. As soon as I try to say you're a man, you're a soul, you're a living this, you're a that, it's all fiction. I'm separating you from the whole. Microphone. Pass the microphone back.
So when you ask the question, what is this, is the proper answer no answer?
Is the proper answer no answer? Are you taking a position that there's an answer? Are you taking the position that there's a right answer and a wrong answer? Isn't being in the question a powerful position to be in? Does the creditor always ask a question?
No, the creditor always answers the question.
If you're asking a question, are you being a creditor? Could a question obstruct or delay? Yes. Can debtors ask questions? Yes. Are you taking a position that asking a question makes you a debtor?
I'm just asking.
Are you asking because you think there's an answer? Are you waiting for me to answer?
I just want to know.
Do you think I know?
We all know. Where are we going with this?
It's exactly. The what?
The question has to move the subject forward, the conversation forward.
Does it?
Yeah.
Just messing with you. I'm just messing with you. Statement maker. Ooh, that's a nice way of calling him a debtor. Statement maker.
Yeah. I was going to ask a question 15 minutes ago before we got off this, but I had a zero-sum question.
Uh-huh.
And it was I made a deposit on a piece of property, and I wrote a check. It got cashed. I changed my mind within the period, and they sent me my deposit back. Is that something that I can 1099A and OID?
Look at the zero-sum game.
Yeah, that's
where's the interest now?
Back with me. Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Okay, say you refinance, and I'm trying to look at this. You create a new loan to pay off the old loan. Say you create $1 million loan to pay off. Part of it goes to pay off a $200,000 loan, and the rest goes in your pocket. The amount that gets paid off, the previous loan that gets paid off. I'm trying to see this in the zero-sum game. Yes, we can.
You got $1 million loan. $200,000 was sent in some kind of an instrument to pay a debt. How much of your interest was withheld? $200,000. You're saying I'm still holding $800,000 in interest.
Well, we can OID.
As soon as I spend that $800,000,
that's not the question. Yeah, the $800,000 isn't the question. We can OID the $1 million.
See, was the interest withheld, and how much of the interest was withheld?
So if we OID the $1 million, then we pretty much whatever we refinance or wherever that money went is really you can't OID.
It depends, because did the refinancer, are the funds being held in the account that the refinancing happened in?
I don't understand.
Meaning, I deposited a note. Did that note give me a liability account? See, what happened typically is you went out and you got a loan, right? So you filled out a promissory note. That promissory note, we'll say, was for $100,000. Okay. And so you have this $100,000 in interest, right? Then $200,000 of this is withheld to pay party A, and then the other $800,000 is withheld and sent electronically to this account down here.
Right.
Okay? So if we're looking at the zero-sum game, you could claim the whole million. Sure. But the fact is, this $800,000 in interest that was withheld ended up down here as $800,000 in interest. Did it not?
I'm kind of loopy right now, so thinking about it.
Okay. I am that I am. Okay. Yeah.
I wanted to get some clarification, if you could, about things that occur at the end of the year, and also sort of a piggyback on that previous question. If the original loan occurred, say, in 2003, 2004, and then you refinance and it's paid off, say, in 2006, can you 1099 that original loan even though it occurred before the 2005?
You're not going to get a return.
Okay. What about if half of it occurred, say, in 2004, and then there's still, it was carried over until 2005? Do you prorate some of that to?
Say that again?
Well,
half of it was?
Let's say the original loan occurred in 2004, and it was paid off in 2006 with a larger loan.
Right.
Can you 1099 any of that was of the loan from 2005 to 2006 before it was paid off? Or you just have to look at when the loan was originated?
Okay.
Yeah, but can you do
Let me see if I understand you correctly. You got a loan in 05, you're saying now.
No, well, let's just say 04.
Well, then.
Okay, 04. And then that's when it started, but you were paying on it until, through 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2006, you took out a refinance. So that paid off that first one.
Right.
Can you 1099 that first one?
It happened in 04. It happened in 04. If it happened in 04, can I claim it? Yeah, but that's a different matter. That's different interest being withheld.
Oh, okay.
You can 1099A that payment you made in 2005.
Brandon, I think what she's a better example would be if you did it in 05 and then you refinance in 07, can you OID both accounts?
Okay, let's say this is 05 and this is 07. In 05, I sign a $100,000 promissory note, $100,000 in interest. $100,000 in interest is withheld and pays the seller, right? Okay. I get to 07, I get a loan or I sign a promissory note for $200,000, which gives me $200,000 in interest. $100,000 of interest is withheld to pay off this loan. And the other $100,000, what happens to that? Goes into, you go into debt or something, or it goes into your checking account? Okay, so $100,000 again gets withheld and ends up in your checking account maybe? Okay, so $200,000, $100,000, two different events, both happen within the salvage laws clause. Okay. Oh, yeah. I guarantee you there's two different loan numbers. Yeah. So these are two different deposit instruments. It's like saying if I endorse a check for $100 and I deposit it in my account, and then I write a check for $100 out of that account, can I take another check for $100 and put it in that account? I mean, no matter what, every time I create and deposit one of these instruments, if I'm not holding the interest is withheld. And if the interest is withheld, then it's due back. Okay? Zero-sum game. Alrighty. Anything else before we wrap this up? Oh.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification on these credit card statements that come at the end of the year. So you've got part of December in it, and then there's charges also for, say, the beginning of January.
That goes to the next year.
Yeah, you're looking at the wrong. You got to look at the closing date on the statement. If the closing date on the statement is in 06, then it does not belong in your 05.
So
Meaning your last statement for 05 may be dated December 1st.
Exactly.
Yes. So if the closing date on your last account for 05 is 12/1, anything that happens on that account from 12/2 on goes in 06.
Okay.
Okay?
But technically you...
And then what would the date of abandonment be? 12/1. That's why that date is so important on those 1099-As. The closing date of the account is going to be the date. Or in the case of a checking account or a credit card statement, home equity line statement, anything where you're claiming it based on the funds that were issued within the year. Okay?
And that's put on the 1099-A when you electronically file. Well, we
What
did.
is?
Well, the statement closing date is put on the form that you fill out when you do your 1099-A, right? That's
unless you're doing the abandonment of the promissory note or something like that, because then it would be the date that it was signed.
And this has no effect on whether you're picking for accounting purposes the due date. You know that you can pick.
You would not use the due date in any accounting.
You would not?
No. Why? What is the due date?
Well, I thought in accounting you can either
choose.
Choose two.
Clearly, you're talking about a credit card because is there a due date on my checking account statement? What would be due? My rebuttal to the balance? Go ahead.
Yeah, so on the example up here, the 12/1 last statement of 2005, then you could take the balance of that month that your next statement might be 1/1/06, and take all that amount from the end of that month and include it with your 2006 1099-A.
Exactly. So let's say it's dated 12/15, which goes to the middle of the month. Everything that happens from 12/16 through 12/31 is going to be on my 06 stuff, because the statement closing date for that period is going to be 1/15/06. Microphone. Go ahead.
Oh, I have one last question on the quantum language. You know that example that you gave where we're driving? You know that Brandon must drive his brother home, and we switched it to the quantum language?
Yeah.
So whatever does become the noun, if I was writing a contract, it's the noun that gets defined?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's like if I had to do my recitals, here's the definitions, then it's
All
only the nouns.
Like realistically, the ultimate contract would define every noun in the contract.
Awesome.
Have you ever looked at a deed of trust? They define lender and borrower, but it doesn't mean someone who loans you money. They define the lender as, lender means this bank. They didn't say that they loaned you any money. Then it says, oh, borrower, it means you. It doesn't mean that you borrowed money. That's not what it says. It says the definition of borrower is Brandon Adams. That's what it means. The definition of lender is Countrywide Bank. Definition of trustee is Recon Trust. Okay? They're defining those words because they don't mean what you think they mean. They didn't loan you any money. They're not a lender. That's why they give it a special definition. And same with, like I said, look at the Constitution and look at all the words that are capitalized in the Constitution. They all have special meanings. To secure the blessings of liberty. Blessings capitalized. Liberty capitalized. Liberty. Remember, liberty and freedom aren't the same thing. Liberty is a privilege, a benefit. And to secure something is done through a security. Okay? So with this newfound knowledge of the language, go out there and start interpreting. And start, really just be very careful in everything you say. Okay, I think we're going to wrap it up since we only got about 2 minutes. Thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure.